Okay. So once the component is placed on this side, then you look at the opposite side and you will find that the wires are perpendicular with respect to your surface. They should be straight. If they are not straight, then use the nose plier and pull them, and you can make them perfectly 90 degree with respect to the surface. Now, how do we solder? So here this angle of 45 degree is going to come into the picture. If your soldering iron is not having this angle, then you will have problem. So what we do, we can hold the soldering iron at 45 degree angle. So the surface which is on the edge of the soldering iron will have 90 degree angle with respect to flat surface. And now you can put it near the edge of component and it will be in complete touch with the component. The soldering wire which we have, it is already having flux inbuilt, so flux is inside the wire, so you don't need to worry about and take the flux separately. So how do we solder? So first you can check whether your soldering iron is hot. So it is hot, the wire is melting immediately, and there was smoke, so that indicates that flux is there. Sometime you will find that on the tip of your soldering iron there is some solder already present. So put some water in this sponge and you can take it out by swiping it here. Now, as we had suggested, put your solder iron completely perpendicular. It will be in touch with the component, it will heat it, and then touch the wire and lift both of them. So the process is keep touching for an amount of time, then touch the wire and lift both of them. This way, now you will find that the joints which we have made are completely covering all 360 degrees. They are not only on one side, they are on all the sides, and they are not big blobs, they are very small in size also. Once you are satisfied with the quality of your soldering, then you can take the wire stripper and you can cut the remaining component. So this way we have soldered one more resistor here. The next thing is about how to solder the wires. To solder the wires, you should have these flexible multi-strand wires. Multi-strand wires, they are not rigid and they have very thin multiple strands of coppers inside, so they are very easy to handle, and since they are flexible, while soldering they will not break. But if you take these single strand wires which are very rigid and if you solder them, then you will find that over a period of time they can break internally or externally, and then you can have problems. So whenever you are soldering, always use these multi-strand wires. All the wires will be kept on this side and always have 90 degree angles whenever you need to have some turn in your wire. So here what I have done, I have connected this end of the wire to this end of the resistor. So how we have done that? First we soldered the resistor, this point and this point. Here between these two a resistor is present. Then on the adjacent pin we put the metal end of the wire, and then here we have soldered the wire, and to join both of them we put some extra solder, and then you will find there is some extra amount of solder present which connects this terminal with this terminal, so the wire is connected to the resistor end. Similarly you can connect the other ends. Other type of components which we need to solder in our regular projects So one of them would be a BJT. Now, as we already mentioned, always put them in the adjacent pins. So you can separate these pins slightly and take 3 consecutive places, and the component will fit perfectly, leaving some space as well. Once it is fitted, then you can go back on the other side and you can solder the legs, and as always we said, we can cut the remaining part with the help of a wire stripper. This will not work here.
Wire cutter. Pause
हो गई. So another type of component which we have to solder would be capacitors. So same thing, do not stretch these legs apart. It is certainly meant for 2 adjacent pins only. So put your capacitor pins in 2 adjacent locations and you will find it is perfectly fitting. If you don't put it this way, so you can find a bad example here. Your capacitor would be hanging around. So do not stretch the wires, they are meant to be kept as they are. Similarly, the ceramic capacitors also, they will also fit in 2 adjacent pins only. So you don't have to stretch them and make some extra efforts. If you put them in 2 adjacent pins, it will fit perfectly over the surface. Next category of components that we need to place, they are ICs. So ICs are very delicate and they are very sensitive to the heating temperature which is generated while the process of soldering is going on. So any IC is not directly soldered over the PCB. To put an IC over PCB, we have these IC bases. So they are also available in all the sizes, so 8 pin, 14 pin, 16 pin and more number of pins also. So what we'll do, we'll identify the location of IC and we'll put the IC base over there. So you will find that the IC base is having these metal legs downside, and then we'll solder these IC bases and then you can have the other connections. Once the complete soldering process is done, then you can insert the IC inside the IC base. Few things which we need. So similarly, a push button also, the legs are not proper, so you can use a nose plier and you can straighten the legs, and you will again find that they are fitting in adjacent pins. One more component which we generally use is potentiometer. So how to put potentiometer on your PCB? For that you need to drill one hole, and from this side you can put the potentiometer, so the rotating knob will come on the top, and then you can put one screw here, so potentiometer will not move and you can change the resistance by moving your knobs. There are different other kinds of potentiometers also which are smaller in size and they are easy to rotate and easy to fit, and we'll be using these also. Similar approach can be taken for placing LEDs. All the LEDs will be on this side, legs will be on the other side. These are 7-segment displays. Again, they can be temperature sensitive. So there is a base which is provided to put 7-segment display. You can directly solder 7-segment display. Otherwise, just for safety reason, you can put a base as well. So this is all about different practices which you have to take care while soldering. Now we will tell you some examples which are examples of good soldering and bad soldering. So if you look at this side of the circuit, everything seems to be fine. The components are pretty well placed, all the ICs are in their IC bases, wires are hanging around which is not acceptable. Resistors are fine, but if you rotate it, it is a complete mess. None of the wires are allowed on this side. There should not be any wire or any loose connections in the solder on this side. Everything you have to plan on this side. You can take a larger PCB and you can make your project over a larger PCB, but do not bring any wire on this side of the circuit. Similarly, if you see this one, these wires are connected on this side which are not acceptable. You have to plan your project. You can take a larger PCB for that. All these examples which we have, so look at here, this is the example of night rider circuit, and these 6 LEDs will glow in the sequence, so they are very well placed. On this side the circuit looks fine, but there are one or two minor things which are not good for a good project. This is another kind of PCB which are called zero PCB, where the complete side would be a copper plate. So we draw the tracks and we do the chemical process of etching, and then only that much copper will remain. So the wires or the interconnects, they are made by etching process, and the remaining things we have to drill holes because there are no holes in this. So we have to use a drill machine. We have to drill every single hole and then we have to solder these points. So this is another process. You can take these type of PCBs also, which will look better than the regular PCBs once these are executed perfectly. The floor planning can be done with lot of softwares, they are available, and these projects will actually look better than these ones because the floor planning will be better. So I hope you will have good soldering in your project, and thank you very much.